Hello, and welcome to another segment of the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra's Virtuoso. I'm music director and conductor William Intriligator, and joining me today is our wonderful trombonist, Dan Watt. Thank you, Dan. Welcome.
William, glad to be here. This is great.
Yeah, it sure is. You know, one of the things that's so special about this is to not just to hear our musicians perform, but to get to know them a little better. And just seeing you in your home with the things behind you, it's already showing a little bit about you and your personality. Why don't you first start out by telling us, how long have you been in the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra?
Well, I joined the orchestra back in 2015, so this would have concluded my 5th year. Yeah. Which is crazy. Time has gone by so fast. I feel like I just joined the orchestra, but it's been 5 years.
And before that, I think you subbed with us a few times too. So, I mean, but that was when you officially started. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Where are you from originally, and how long have you been in the Front Range area?
Well, I grew up in Colorado Springs, and I've been in Colorado most of my life. I did my undergraduate at the University of Denver, and that's where I met my current wife. I mean, my wife now is where I met her. But I did my graduate work in Evanston, Illinois, in Northwestern, and upon completing my degree there, she was my fiance at the time. We were trying to figure out where to go, and we just kind of thought, let's get back to Colorado because I had some connections there, and so we moved back and slowly but surely started making things happen here along the Front Range.
That's great. Is she also a Colorado native, and is she also a musician?
She is not a native. She's from Oregon, but she is a musician. She's a horn player. Oh. She's actually the personnel manager for the Wyoming Symphony, and she plays fourth horn up there.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness. That is so great.
Yeah, us musicians have to stick together, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So where do you guys make your home now? Is it in Colorado, in Wyoming?
Yeah, so we actually just moved recently, within the past couple of years, up to Windsor, Colorado. We moved up here because it's kind of central to basically for my work. You know, going up, playing up in Cheyenne, playing up in Casper, and then teaching up in Laramie. So we moved up as far north as we could go to make my commute easier without adding too much time for her work.
Sure. Well, I'm sure it makes it easier for her with the Casper Symphony, or Wyoming Symphony up in Casper too.
Right.
And then that was a perfect segue to tell us about your teaching, and tell us a little bit about that.
So I am the adjunct instructor of trombone and euphonium at the University of Wyoming. Go Pokes!
Yes.
And I've been there for 4 years now, and I have a passion for teaching. I absolutely love being able to go to Laramie and working with my students. They're incredible. I have 10 right now, and they range from about half of them are all music majors, primarily music ed, but I also have a graduate performance major, and then the other half are non-majors, and they are some of the hardest working students, and they care so much, and it is truly a blessing to get to work with them. And yeah, they're incredible students, and I've been there for 4 years, and really enjoy it.
That is so fantastic. We have such a special relationship with the faculty there, with the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra. We have so many of your artist faculty in the orchestra, and we're just so lucky to have such a great school of music right there at UW in Laramie. And it's really special for Wyoming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. And then do you also perform in other organizations in the Front Range as well, in terms of, playing in other orchestras, for instance?
Yes, yeah. So I am a regular, actually, I'm principal with the rest of these orchestras. I play principal up with the Wyoming Symphony, which is up in Casper, and also the Fort Collins Symphony, and then the Steamboat Springs Symphony.
Wow, you are busy.
Yeah,
amazing.
So those are my regular orchestras, and then sub in Greeley and Boulder, and kind of all around, and do a lot of the freelance, the Freeway Philharmonic as it's called.
That's right. Gosh, we are so lucky to have you in Cheyenne. My goodness, it's wonderful all that you're doing. Now, what age were you when you started music, and why trombone? How did you know trombone was right for you?
So a little known fact about me that my friends and colleagues may or may not know, and people who don't know me may or may not know, but I'm actually a huge Star Wars fan. And when I was growing up, they were my absolute favorite movies, and they're still my favorite movies. And there was just something about Star Wars that I had to be a part of it. And as I was growing up, I realized it was the wonderful music that Star Wars is famous for. And so I had to be a part of Star Wars. And so if I couldn't learn to become a Jedi and learn to use the Force, I could learn to play the Force theme, and be a part of the orchestra. So I wanted to play. I wanted to start music back when I was in 4th grade, but I had to wait. My parents said, "No, we're not gonna have you start until there's a band program, which is in 6th grade." Now, it might seem a little bit contradictory, but in 4th grade, I really wanted to play the saxophone, which makes a whole lot of sense because of Star Wars music. But I really wanted to play saxophone. And so I had this idea that that's what I'm going to play. And so the instrument tryout day that you have when you're picking an instrument, I went in there and I was super confident. I was like, yep, I'm going to play the saxophone. And I came in and I just sat down, what other instruments would you try? I only wrote that. And so, so they said, and so the person who was helping me try out instruments, she looked at her sheet and she said, well, we have 21 saxophones coming into 6th grade. So that's unfortunately filled. What we need? We need trombone. And so I was like, well, which one's that? She's like, it's this one. I was like, all right, fine. Well, to this day, I'm confident that woman was my guardian angel, because the trombone is I truly relate with it, and I think it's my voice, and it got me back on the path to playing Star Wars music.
Right.
I mean, one of my absolute favorite concerts that we do in Cheyenne is the Pops concert, and the Space concert, and getting to perform those. That is me realizing the dream that I had, and so that is one of my favorites. And then on the flip side, getting to perform that for all of those students that are bussed in, that's what got me excited about music. And so I get to realize the dream, get to play Star Wars music for kids. And I know that somebody's sitting out there going, I want to do that. And I would tell those kids, well, I'm proof that you can.
I still remember some of the costumes that you've worn at our family matinees. I mean, it's like you're pretty dedicated to being a stormtrooper. I'm not sorry. Part of the part of the resistance, I should say.
Yes. Well, more specifically, I'm an X-wing pilot. Yeah.
X-wing pilot. Yeah, you've got the sort of orange and white. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the only thing that I can wear, because I have the helmet that doesn't cover up the mouthpiece, so I can.
Right.
No, I've got a stormtrooper helmet and the Mandalorian helmet and everything. I just couldn't play with those on.
See, I thought I was a Star Wars geek and fan, but compared to you, I think I'm a lightweight.
Probably.
But, those movies are so important to me too, and I think it was also another important way that I fell in love with the sound of an orchestra as well. And
right.
That is so funny though, that you were so set on the saxophone, and this one chance, encounter with this teacher changed your life, really. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, I'd like to say course corrected, because it's like, you know, in fourth grade, it's like, I mean, I didn't know anything. I mean, my family, my parents aren't musicians. This is, I'm kind of the black sheep when it comes to being a musician. And so I didn't know any better. You know, everybody knew what the saxophone was. Saxophone's cool. That's what I wanted to do. And so, yeah, course corrected. It was like, no, if you go this route, you're not going to be playing the music of John Williams with a full symphony orchestra in Cheyenne.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's so funny when we hear about these stories about how our professional musicians, how they chose their instrument. So often it feels like it's like the instrument, it has to be right for the personality, and you don't know if it's like you choose the instrument or the instrument chooses you. And it's just so interesting about that, isn't it?
Absolutely. So prior to teaching at UW, I actually worked for an El Sistema program in Denver, which was great. And I taught there for 4 years and taught you know, underprivileged inner city kids and brought music to them, which was a great, rewarding experience. And you're exactly right. I remember through those years when when the instrument and the personality clicked, they really found that they were much more successful. And like, I mean, I have names and I have faces in my head of trumpet players. You know, it was like, you are absolutely a trumpet player and you found the right instrument. So
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
So interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit about the music that you chose to play for us this evening. Tell us a little bit about this, because it's a composer who may not be known to many of our audience here tonight, but he's a legend in the trombone world, right? Tell us about him.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tommy Peterson is, like you said, he's a legend in the trombone world. He was really big in the 60s, played with Frank Sinatra and Tommy Dorsey. Great trombonist and a great American jazz, primarily trombonist. And he wrote a lot of really, really fun music, concert pieces. He's really famous for his etude books, and he's got a great duet book that has a lot of these really fun, quirky duets. Like one of the duets is called Hippo and the Cabbage Patch. And
that's great.
And so they're fun and they're really quirky. And so this piece particularly is a piece for solo trombone with trombone choir. It's a sextet, 4 tenors and 2 basses, and it's a beautiful, expressive piece that I've always wanted to perform live. I just haven't had the opportunity yet to do so. But more than that, I've actually always wanted to record it, to record all of it myself, to do the multi-tracking aspect of this. And so when I was originally invited to do this series, you know, I was trying to figure out music that I could play. I was thinking about unaccompanied things that I could do, or I could play with you know, a backing track and play a concerto or something. But I've always had an interest in this multi-tracking kind of aspect. You know, understand that when we're members of the orchestra, we desire to play in an ensemble. You know, we desire to contribute to a greater whole. I love playing in my section in Cheyenne, and I miss those guys greatly. And then the extension of that, I miss the rest of the playing, contributing to the brass section, which contributes to the rest of the wind section, which contributes to the orchestra as a whole. You know, we really, as ensemble players, we want to participate in a larger thing. And so, especially now as of late, with all of these circumstances, we've been confined to playing by ourselves. Yeah. And so, like I said, I've always had an interest in multi-tracking. You know, I've done some duet stuff, I've done some trios and quartets, much smaller, more straightforward stuff. I've even done some pop stuff. I've recorded Pharrell's Happy and Camila Cabello's Havana, and those are great. And when I say straightforward, I mean, you know, it's one tempo. A lot of it is a bit on the repetitive side, and so you can kind of loop things. And so bringing it back to this, when I was invited to do this, I I thought, maybe this is the push that I need to do this much larger concert piece. It has more rubato in it. It has different tempos, accelerandos and rallentandos. And so it was going to be a really big stretch for me to do this. But it's something that I've always wanted to do. I've loved this piece. I've wanted to do it live, but if I can't do it live, that doesn't stop us from creating it and playing all of the parts.
Fantastic. So with the background that Peterson had, should we expect it to be jazzy at all, or is this in a different style?
No, it definitely has some jazz idioms to it for sure. It's not straightforward. It's not a swing tune or anything like that. But he has a lot of the jazz inflection for emotional aspects. I think people will really enjoy how it transitions through different segments of the piece, different emotional qualities.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to hear it. Thank you so much for doing this, Dan. And we're going to get right into it now. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we present your performance?
I hope that you enjoy it. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate the push from you and the Cheyenne Symphony to put this together. And it's not perfect, but I think it came out. I was pleased with the way that it came out.
Great. All right, we'll get right into it. Thank you, Dan. Bravo, Dan. That was incredible. From a musical standpoint as well as a technological standpoint, bravo. Really amazing.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I could see why doing this piece would be like a goal, a stretch, a kind of, this is something that you've always wanted to do. And, now that we're sort of isolated at home, we have a little extra time. This is like a great opportunity to do it. What a cool piece that was. It's a kind of a serious concert piece from this jazz performer and composer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a challenge just to learn all of the parts, and the solo part was pretty demanding in and of itself. And so if you were putting this on a recital, it would take a lot of work just to bring that up. But on the technical side of things, when we were talking about some of the multi-track kind of things, one of the deterrents from me doing a much more significant piece of music like this is honestly the inherent pulse. Like I was saying, some of the other music that I've done in the past, it's all been one pulse. You get to turn the click track on and you just go. And you do need the click track. It's kind of funny when you're recording something and over multi-tracking something like this, you suddenly any inadequacies in your own playing are like highlighted right away. Like whenever you record something and then you go back and you try and play with that, you're like, why can't that guy play in tune? Like why can't that guy just keep a steady pulse? So that's one thing that you can control is you get a click track. But on something like this, where there's rubato and there's different tempos and there's accelerandos and rallentandos, I had to figure out how I was going to tackle that, because you need to approach every single track from a place of striving for consistency, you know, in terms of pitch and rhythm. And so what I had to do was I recorded my own click track. And so I sat down with my microphone, with my score, and I figured out exactly what I wanted to do with the rubato, and find out exactly what the tempo markings were. And so I turned the metronome on, and I recorded my metronome, but then I turn it off when I did rubato, and I would actually count. Like my first entrance of the solo trombone part, I said 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And so that way, when the other parts came in, there's no guesswork in terms of where the next downbeat would be. And so yeah, one track that you did not hear, at least I hope you didn't hear, was the inherent click track that I was playing along with making sure that every single part fit together. So.
I was wondering, because you could see you were wearing headphones in each of the 7 images. Cool, by the way, with the different outfits for each one. Colors. But I wasn't sure if you were always listening to everything, or if you were listening to, I didn't even think about a click track. I assumed maybe you were listening to the blend of it all or something like that. Did you only hear this click track when you were recording each of the 6 accompanying voices?
Well, and that's interesting too, because no, so I would listen to the click track, and then I would listen to some of the parts. I'd pick out either one of the bass parts or one of the lower tenor parts that played more of the tonic notes. And so, like I said, you know, why can't that other guy play in tune? It's sometimes hard to figure out which track to record first, you know, and then building upon that, it's like when you're playing one track all by yourself, sometimes it's hard to know your role, even if you know the piece, you know, understand the role and the balance and the blend. And so it becomes a unique challenge as you start layering on top of it. And you'll go back and listen and go, well, that was important, but that was one of the first tracks that I played. I didn't necessarily know to bring that voice out. So it's always a learning experience whenever you're putting something like this together. And so this was a big push for me to put this whole thing together, and it's the best one that I've done, but the next one that I do will be even better.
I'm sure. I was super impressed, Dan. I mean, and I think that you have certain qualities that made it perfect for you. I don't think anybody else could have done this, really. You have, I mean, your principal trombone in all these orchestras, so you have this soloistic quality and this leading sound, like perfect for the solo role. In Cheyenne, you have to, I mean, there's a fine art to playing second trombone, knowing who to listen to and where to tune. And that's exactly what you were just talking about with those 6 different accompanying tracks. So I think you were like inherently really attuned to how to do that, which I'm not sure everybody would have been sensitive to that. You know, other trombone players may not have. So, well, I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, what's great about Cheyenne, I mean, I have a very competent leader in the section. John Neurer is a leader through and through. And so I actually love getting to play second to a competent leader like that. He's very convincing. He's very easy to play with, you know, because he lays it down and he's consistent. And so when you have that kind of leadership, it's easy to sit down and there's no guesswork. So yeah, I love my chair in Cheyenne. I love my section, and the role that I fit there. And so I thank you. I appreciate that. As the soloist, I get to express my principal trombone voice, but right. In the other parts, I get to be my section, wear my section hat.
Absolutely. You know, I was going to ask you whether the lower 2 of the lowest 2 accompanying images and recordings, were those on a tenor trombone or were those on a bass trombone? Because sometimes it just sounded like pedal tones on a tenor, but it sounded so different at times. I was like, maybe he's playing a bass trombone on this.
I was actually playing this bass trombone.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so yeah. I do double on bass trombone. I absolutely am primarily a tenor player, but I am really working on my bass chops. I mean, because I love bass trombone. It's a great instrument. I mean, it's still a trombone, but it's a completely different animal. You know, it's kind of both. Mostly for my students, for my bass trombone students. I have the idea that I really do need to practice what I preach. And so if I'm bass trombonist, I really do need to play bass trombone. And so that honestly in the recording was one of the challenges, and one of the bigger frustrations is because I have this image in my head, and my own limitations as a bass trombonist would kind of, when I'd reach those, I would get frustrated. But yes, those bottom two voices were both on bass. The other 5 parts were on tenor.
Right. And maybe some of our audience watching this doesn't realize that they are very different instruments. And
Right.
Obviously they're both trombones, but the bass trombone has such a different sound. And
right.
Yeah.
And it should. It should.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I was going to mention is that the way it was produced was so well done, with zooming in and out, and like the way the accompaniment voices would come in suddenly, bah, with one note. Yeah. It was kind of a playful thing, almost like the old Batman TV series, pow.
Right.
And that reminded me of this really funny video that I want our audience here to look up on YouTube, which is this composer playing trombone in Flight of the Bumblebee, a recording from the 60s. Tell us about that one.
I don't know if I want to spoil it.
Okay, yeah. Maybe not. But just look up, how do you pronounce his last name? Is it Peterson?
Peterson, yeah, Tommy Peterson.
Tom Peterson, Flight of the Bumblebee on YouTube. You won't be disappointed. It's not like any Flight of the Bumblebee you've ever heard.
He really lies into the more playful, quirky nature that he inherently has. Yeah.
Yes. And we love musical humor at times, which is great.
Well, thank you for the comments about the video production. During this time, you see a lot of videos done much like mine, right? Where you see the multi-tracking, and you see the videos. And they're great. There's some really amazing ones, but a lot of time I find myself finding the video to be a little bit on the stale side if it's just sitting there, right? And so the video production that I tried to do was to try and showcase, like, musically what was important. When the trombone choir was the voice, I wanted your attention on the trombone choir, not me standing there with my trombone counting reps,
Right.
And so it was supposed to really engage the audience more.
And then the different angles and the zooming in, and I almost thought if there was somebody else in the room with you, but you were telling me before we were recording that it was something that you just mastered all on your own.
Right. So just like how I'm experimenting and learning more about multi-tracking, I'm really interested in video production and like what is possible and what is engaging. And so I've been experimenting with more things. Yeah, the second angle, I had 2 cameras set up just for the solo trombone part, and tried to pick, when is it necessary for you to look at my face? When is it more necessary to look at the body of the horn? And again, just to keep the video dynamic, it's like
very.
We have this opportunity. It's like, well, let's explore what works. And I'm glad that the Batman thing was that you enjoyed that. I literally had to ask my wife. I was like, "Is this cheesy?" She's like, "No, it's great." I was like, "You sure it's not cheesy?"
I think Peterson would have been happy about that. Well, Dan, you're a man of so many talents. We're so lucky to have you and your artistry and talent in the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra. Thank you so much for everything that you brought to this tonight. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience out there?
Yes, I would like to say, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank the Cheyenne Symphony for putting these together. These videos, I've been watching them too, and I think that they've been great for our patrons to get to know the musicians a little bit better. But honestly, I've enjoyed them personally so much. I'm getting to know my own colleagues better. And hear some truly, truly beautiful performances and interesting performances. I got to ask Becky about her looping pedals and everything. I mean, how cool was that? And rock violin and some of these other things that the other musicians are doing that I had no idea. So I'm grateful to have been invited to participate in this. I'm really blessed, and it's quite an honor to be here right now. But I've truly enjoyed getting to know my own colleagues better. And so, you know, it's the silver lining in all of these circumstances. You know, I mean, look at what you've been able to put together as a result of this, and the music keeps going, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I feel the same way. I'm getting to know you and the other musicians in the orchestra so much better. And I mean, we're like family, and it's just wonderful to actually see each other and
Right.
to have a chance to get to know more about them and their background and their personalities and see them in their homes. It's really special.
Right.
I know there was one other thing you wanted to mention, which is that you were really looking forward to playing our film with live orchestra to Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, like I said, I'm a musician because of Star Wars, and if you boil that down, I'm a musician because of John Williams, and I was so looking forward to doing Raiders of the Lost Ark in concert. You know, again, that is the totality, the realization of the dream, is to be a part of something that big, and I was so sad and I was so disappointed that it had to be canceled. But I can't wait till the whole orchestra gets back together again. I miss all of my colleagues so much. Yeah. I miss making music, and I know that we will return, and I'm looking forward to that day. I can't wait.
And as far as the Raiders of the Lost Ark goes, it's not fully canceled. It's just postponed, and right. It's not a matter of if we do it. It's just a matter of when we do it, and we're trying to find a way to do it safely. And we think we might be ready to make an announcement about that in the coming weeks. So stay tuned. If you're also, like Dan and me, super excited for the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra to play film with live orchestra with that incredible John Williams score to Raiders of the Lost Ark, it will happen. So hold on to your tickets if you already bought them. And if you haven't bought them, well, we'll probably sell you some tickets once the date is announced.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dan. Yeah, I can't wait either. Yeah. This has been so much fun. Thank you again. Bravo again. And I can't wait to make music together with you and all of our friends in the Cheyenne Symphony. And for you, our audience who might be watching this from your homes, we appreciate your support of the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra, even in these difficult times. We look forward very much to the time when we can come together as a community and have great music move us and bring us together. Dan, any other final words?
I just hope that everybody is staying safe and staying healthy, and we're ready to get back together when it's time, and we can't wait to see you. And thank you again, William. Thank you so much. This has been a real blessing for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you have been a big part of the blessing too, Daniel. Thank you so much. All right, good night, everybody.